Hey Luke, how you doing? I'm just going to give a few more people a chance to get on because we had quite a lot of people on last time for the first part, and I wasn't going to continue until tonight, but I've got about a 40-minute interval, so I thought I'd progress, otherwise I'll be at it all night later on. So we've just had our supper, which was very nice. Well, just realised here I'm going to have to trim down the top of this bowl quite a bit. I didn't take into account this chip here, which is the way they've cut this block. It's a bit cheeky that they sent me this like that, but anyway, I should have really taken note of it as I was cutting it, but it's no harm. It'll just be a shorter No, it's not 9 p.m. George. I got a little bit of a window, a half an hour window, and I thought I'd just grab that time to just progress it a little bit. Otherwise, I'll be up all night with it. So I'm just gonna grab the time that I've got. I've got to go out at about 10 to 7, which is in about 40 minutes. So I've got about half an hour to play with. So the thing I've noticed, which I don't know how I didn't see this before, but there's quite a chunk out of the briar there. You see that chunk there, and that goes right to the edge of the bowl. I don't know why I didn't see that before, but in any event, I'm going to have to trim down the bowl so we get a bit of thickness to work with, which is a bit not ideal, but we've got to do what we've got to do. So we're going to put the mask on, seeing as there's going to be briar flying. Alright, so we've already got a bit of thickness there. I'm just going to take it a little bit, trim it a bit more. I don't want to trim it too much because then I'll not have enough left room to work with the tool, with a carving tool. Hey Mike, I've come back out because I've got about half an hour to play with and I want to just progress it as much as I can. I don't want to be up with it all night, so I didn't take account of this little chunk here, which was how the block arrived. So I've just trimmed it down a bit to give me a bit of thickness on the bowl. I'm going to take it down a fraction more. It's going to be a fairly small pipe in the end. Okay, there's about 6 mil now. I'm happy with that. It's okay. It's good enough. Pretty much as near as damn it. Alright, that's about as far as I can go, and the grain is looking very good. I'm hoping, Mike, that the top will give me some nice bird's eye. So for now, I'm not going to round it off. So if I can bring out that bird's eye, I think I'll be happier with that. Yeah, it's got some really nice grain on that rim, so I'm going to keep that. Hey Frank, how you doing? I'm doing well, thank you. I hope so, Frank, as long as I don't muck it up. Oh, I'm positive, I'm just messing around. I haven't done bulldogs, proper bulldogs. I've done Rhodesians. I've done a diamond shank, but it wasn't a bulldog. It was more of a squash Dublin kind of thing. But I did do a diamond shank. It didn't work out very well, but it was a start. It was my first one, and it actually sold as well. I sold it at a very low price, but it sold, so can't complain. Probably what I will do is that I'll get some pre-cast, pre-pressed bulldog shanks as a way to train kind of thing with the diamond shanks. So a pre-pressed diamond shaped stem, and then work from there, and then progress to doing stems as well. But that's probably what I'll do. Hey Hector. Well, the sanding at this stage is because I have the benefit of a spinning wheel, which means that I can sand and know that I'm sanding perfectly round and not have to worry about it. When I'm doing it on the wheel, I've got to rely on my own hand sort of turning skills, which is fine, but it's never going to be as perfectly round as on a spinning lathe. So I sand this as much as I can. I'll go up to about 600 or 800, and then I'll tape it off to protect it. I'll sand it again later, but just to get the basic shape, the top. So I can't do beyond that, so I'll do as much as I can, like this, and then we'll take it off and start working on the sanding wheel. Very often, all of this sanding goes to waste because I sand over it, and that's that. I mean, when I'm staining, I'll usually go back to a 600 or a 400 when I'm sanding off the undercoat. So, but it doesn't matter because this is still giving me a very good base shape. So maybe I've done 1 or 2 grits wasted. Doesn't matter. And to be honest, a lot of times in the past, I would leave things naked. I wouldn't stain it anyway, so the more I did here, the better. So that's 400. I'm not going to go to 1,000 or anything like that. I'm going to go to 600, but I'm not, no point going beyond that because the chances of it actually on the top rim, maybe yes, that is worth going higher, because that's likely to stay as is. Right, so I'm gonna still go to 800. Whoopsie daisy, careless. Paper's too big. But the main thing I want here is the rim. I don't sand the inside of the bowl. Most people do, all the high-enders do. So I guess I'm being a little bit stubborn when I don't, because who am I to know better than them? But my personal preference is to have a rough bowl, because I think that it lends itself to the creation of a cake. That's just my theory. When you get them really, really smooth, I just think there's less surface to adhere to. and I suppose it's easier that I don't have to sand. Another thing I don't have to sand, but I never have. Maybe it's something I'll change in the future. I know that there are some metal bits that you can get which fit inside the bowl, and you can wrap sandpaper around it. But I just, the pipes that I've broken in of mine, I've found them to break in really well with a rough surface. And to be honest with you, it's really just cosmetic, because at the end of the day, once you smoke a pipe, the inside, once you get a cake on it, you know, what difference does it make? So it's kind of the detail. You know, when you get a high ender and you're going to pay £1,000 for a pipe, you want every detail to be exactly as it should be. So it's really just about those finer details. But for me, it has no function. Yeah, Mike, that's my theory. I mean, it's not rough like sandpaper, because the drill bit, when it goes in there, when I finish with all the holes that I drill, I leave the drill bit, remove all the dust, and then put the drill bit back in, so it leaves a really smooth surface. And I know that it's ready and smooth when I pull the bit out and there's no dust on the bit at all. And that's what I do with the bowl, and I do that with the shank as well. Alright, so I'm going to take you guys out, and you can get an idea of what it looks like. Hold on, let me just take this. So there you can see the grain already, really nice, and on the rim also some nice I don't know if you can see that or not, but you can see some bird's eye on there. We might have a bit of a problem here. I can see a bit of a crack. See if it goes right through. See, the grain is so pronounced on this that it's actually, there's sort of a crack along the line of the grain. That might be a problem. Right, I've got to inspect that. Hang on. Okay, so what we have is a little fissure on the surface. There is a very fine line. I can either sand it more, right there. Can you see that line there? So that goes through about 1 millimeter into the thickness of the rim. So I could sand that back and lose all that lovely bird's eye and have just a really thin rim, or I could just leave it. It doesn't go right through. But it would mean that I've got a really thin rim. So I could just give it a really good contrast stain and hide it. I'd obviously let the person know if I do sell it that it's there, but at least cosmetically it won't be so visible. But it shouldn't really affect the smoke. You know, as long as the person builds up a cake, it should be fine. Yeah. So I need to decide where I'm going with this. What do we think, people? Any advice, anyone? Oh no, give me a break. That's not going to happen, Mike. Yeah, it's not a hole or anything, Jordan. It's really just a hairline. And it will fill with stain and wax and whatever, but it's there. I hope your wife does too, George. Just kidding. Boom, boom. It's about a centimetre. It's about that long. I don't know if you can see just under a centimetre long. I don't know if you can see that. No, I don't think it's going to run the risk of a burn through. As I say, as long as it's broken in properly, it should be fine. And it's really the top. Well, you mean I should sand through it? It's not going to help me very much, Mike. Can I make it flat enough for that? Let's have a look. So even as a prince, it'll end up being really, really stumpy. I think it would be too short. No, I don't think I want to do that, Mike. Unless I end up making it into a tomato, squashed tomato kind of idea. Well, a prince, but a squashed prince maybe. A bit like Harry. And there, it's going to end up being really small because if I would have started with a wider bowl, if not for that chunk that was in the pipe, then I could have made it a wider, flatter pipe and be more like a group 2. It will be tiny, except it's a wider bowl, so maybe yes, a group 3. The bowl is a normal size bowl. I think it's about somewhere between an 18 and a 20 mil bowl, so that should be okay. So really classic Prince dimensions, really. I've got to be honest, I'd be loath to lop it off. I really would. Sand it slightly smooth and make a thumb spot. It's not all the way through. It's not all the way through. about the top of the bowl, the rim, is about 5 or 6 mil. And let me get the thing. It's 5.2 right at the top, and I would say that it's about a mil or a mil and a half in the line. So I'll still have about 3 mil. It would be too thin to sand it down and leave the height, so it's either trim it right down, go past it. I think it's a risk not worth taking, because with these things, you know, it might look like it doesn't go further, but as you start to sand down, it could open up a little bit more and it could go all the way down. So I don't know, I don't think it's worth the risk. And if worst comes to worst, I could always do it afterwards on the sanding wheel if I really have to. Hector, yeah, that's certainly a viewpoint, but I'm not, even if I'm not aiming to sell £1,000 pipes, I've got to try and do the best that I can with every pipe that I can do. That's my motto, that's my raison d'etre, if you like. I can't, if I can do something better than I will. If I can't, I can't. I've done my best and I can't. But I've got to try. It's not about how much I'm going to sell it for, it's about me having job satisfaction and me doing the best that I can, rising to the challenge, overcoming the challenge. That's really what half of this is all about. You know, it's not about making the money necessarily. But I think on balance, I think I'm going to leave it. Maybe I'll trim a bit of it off, maybe. Maybe we could do that. Hang on. Yeah, no, it doesn't go through, so I don't think it will extend further. But I think if I trim this down, I'm going to be left with next to nothing. So I'm not going to do it. Maybe I'll do it a bit later. Rusticating the top. I'd have to only decide that later on. That's with the pipe, with the grain, the way this is looking, hopefully it stays that way throughout the pipe. But maybe that's an option. We shall see. It would mean rusticating a bit of the top of the pipe and the rim as well, which would be a huge shame. I think the pipe would look better with a dark contrast stain, and as long as the person who buys it, if I sell it, is aware of it, then I think it would be fine, because cosmetically it will look fine, and technically it should be fine as well. Alright, time to take this out. One glove on. Bit of Michael J. Oops. Yes, you are a bit of a fisher. Alright, so here we have it. It's actually looking, shape-wise, it's really got a nice flow to it. And by the time it's finished, it probably will look a bit princey, even as it is. Might aim for a prince shape, we'll see. But a prince would really have a softer kind of bend to it, really. So I don't know, we'll try and follow the original plan of doing a brandy, and we'll see how we go. Right, so the next phase, you probably want to turn your volume right down, because my sandy, as you know, is on the end of a drill over there, and that's going to be noisy. I don't have a turning wheel as yet. You'll have to excuse all the mess, because this room is not built for purpose. It's not fit for purpose either. I'll just make do with what we have, and that's that. Right, in actual fact, I think I'm going to leave it here because I've actually got to leave in 5 minutes. I've just realised the time's flown by. I've got to be at the venue at 7 o'clock, which is in 17 minutes. And it'll take me 10 minutes to get there. And I still have to get changed. So, all in all, proportion-wise, if I can keep the shape, it will look really nice, hopefully. Alright people, thanks very much for joining everybody, and I will catch you later on, hopefully around 9:30 UK time, so in about 2 3/4 hours, 3 hours, something like that. Thanks everybody, all the best.